wet out, slipped, hit her head the wrong way, never got to come home. And I realized we don't get to choose when we die, but we sure get to choose how we live.
I want to live my best life every single day. I push for that.
I'm like, I'm going to become a pilot. I'm going to get a plane. This is amazing.
And I had to look at him, and he destroyed me in that moment, because for 3 years, write a book for the kids is up there.
All right, today we have JM Ryerson on the podcast. He's a coach and an author. I have so much fun talking with him because he asks good questions. And when you ask good questions of yourself, you get good results. So listen in as we go through who he was, who he is, who he helps you become, and learn lots. Let's go win today. Friends, today I have JM Ryerson here as a guest. JM, thank you so much for joining us today.
Jenn, thanks for having me. I apologize. Technical difficulties. I got the shoulder thing going on, but I'm glad we made this happen. So,
hey, this is you. You're resilient. You said, we're still doing this. Don't worry about it. We got this. And I love that because sometimes it doesn't look the way we want it to, but we still need to make it work.
Look, you can only control what you can control. I'm not a technical person, so the right camera wasn't working, the right microphone, but you know what? That's all semantics. We're going to have fun, so this will be good.
This is awesome. Okay, so you are a leadership and performance coach. Talk to me about how that profession came about and all the goods behind there.
Yeah, so I built 3 companies in the financial service world originally. And if you were to ask me any financial service questions, I'm probably going to give you poor information. So I wasn't doing that. What I was good at was building teams, culture, performance. And so I was cruising along, building these companies. It was cool. And then I wrote a book, my first book for my kids. And it was called Let's Go Win, Keys to Living Your Best Life. And I only meant to share it with them. That was literally why I wrote it. And the gal looked at me and said, stop being selfish, publish the book. And it just sent me on what ended up just being my purpose in life, which is let's go win. And so, yeah, that's what I get to work with people every single day on their dreams, their aspirations. And so I'm very fortunate to fall into something that I absolutely love. And so, yeah, I get to do cool podcasts like this and do books and do some coaching. And it's been a cool ride.
Right. It's a cool ride. I like it. But here's the question. You fell into it. I don't know if we fall into it. Don't you think the stars align and all of a sudden these paths go crisscross, and if you slow down enough, you can see the dots that connected?
Yes, agreed. Now, so the full story is I was actually on a retreat. I do leadership or self-development, personal development every year. And one of the things I was in a tent for 3 days with a gallon of water and nothing else, nothing to write with. So just myself and a gallon of water.
And you paid for this retreat. You paid for this retreat, a tent, a gallon of water, and yourself for 3 days.
That's correct. I paid for it.
They sold you. I think they sold you, my friend.
It's so crazy, though. It shaped my entire life because I was able to get quiet. There was no distractions other than, maybe the occasional deer would run by or a snake or, that was about it. It's not like you're even supposed to venture. You're literally supposed to sit in this tent with yourself. And what came to me was Let's Go Win. Here's the crazy part, Jenn. I had written about Let's Go Win when I was about 20 or 21 years old, and I had forgotten about it for 20 some odd years. When we moved from California to Florida, I was cleaning out the garage because my wife was like, hey, let's, purge some stuff. I flipped through this journal, and sure enough, there's the logo, there's Let's Go Win. And I had marinated on this for years. It came out during that silent meditation thing that I did for 3 days. So to your point,
I've done a silent retreat. Okay. I signed up for one of those. I had no clue what I was getting into. But it sounded healthy. It sounded like the next new thing I should do. I hated it. I hated it for the first day, 1,000%. The second day, I maybe liked 1 hour out of 24. The third day, I probably liked 10 hours out of 24. And then when I had to go home, I loved the whole thing. I was like, oh my goodness. I didn't know how much I love this thing until I got away from it. And it is mind changing. I mean, it is crazy what you like discover about yourself in those type of experiences.
No, you're right. It's when you get quiet, you discover things that you've forgotten or things that are really important to you. So, like you said, the first couple hours or days, you're like, oh man, this sucks. And then you're like, oh, that's pretty profound. And actually, it's interesting. What I was reading this morning was, those people that are like Olympic meditators that have done like 60,000 hours plus, they can reach this ability really fast. And we can actually reach it as we kind of go into sleep, but it's hard to remember some of the, really connecting with the subconscious, the superconscious. And so, anyway, I think that's what happens when everything else gets out of the way. You can actually figure out some pretty cool stuff and use the energy of the world and all that stuff. So,
Yeah. No, I'm on page. It's one of those things where you realize like everything is a distraction. Everything.
we're surrounded by it all the time, right? Whether it's your family or the business or the cell phones. My goodness. I mean, we don't have a lot of studies on how long, what is this doing to us that we are tethered to this thing? It puts us in fight or flight constantly, or a lot of people do because they get stressed about some work email. It's like, hey, let that go. Even one day a week, just put it away and watch what comes. And you're going to discover some pretty cool stuff. So, anyway.
No, I agree with you. I interviewed a lady named Tiffany Shalane, and she wrote a book about one day a week having a digital detox and the impact that it's had on her and her family. And I just loved all of it. And even there's little things you can do to your phone that take out all the color to make everything more boring, and even to realize how much less stimulating that is and how much less you want to continue to scroll and do things. It's been a fascinating thing for me as of late because my kids are all into it, and I feel like we're turning into robots. I refuse to have a house full of robots.
It's easy to do. And obviously, science is at play there, right? I mean, they have it triggered. So you're constantly wanting more. Even if you say, I don't want that, it's happening. You are literally looking for that next hit of dopamine, that mini hit. And it's unfortunate that that's where it's become because we've lost some creative thought along the way.
Right, right. Okay, so what triggered the silence retreat? Because that's a calling.
So the entire retreat wasn't silence. It was just that 3 days. But I set a budget every year of personal growth I'm going to do. And I go double or triple every year because I am obsessed with human performance. I want more. And it drives my wife crazy. She's like, can you just be happy? And I'm like, no, I think we can get that much better. There's always something new to try, or to maybe it's that much better. And so it was one of those retreats where it was an activity that we did for those 3 days, and it was really profound.
Okay. So I have been writing a book, and you told me that wrote this book first for your children. Writing a book is a ton, a ton, a ton of work. What inspired you to start writing it just for your kids?
So I had talked about writing a book for, I want to say, 5 years, and I actually had it written down on my goals in my mirror for 3. And my 8-year-old son came up to me at the time. He goes, "Hey, Dad, how's the book going?" And I had to look at him, and he destroyed me in that moment because for 3 years, write a book for the kids is up there, and I hadn't done anything with it. I literally had a little bit of the intro done. And in that moment, he completely inspired and destroyed me all in the same moment because I won't lie to my kids, right? It's the one I will not lie to them. And I said, Trey, it's not going very well. I haven't taken it seriously. It was done within 6 months after him saying that.
Look at you. I love that. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, again, if I'm preaching these things, I'm telling them to put their goals in their mirror and do this, but I'm not being accountable to it. That was a lesson for him. But why did I want to write it? You know what? I realized as I've lost grandparents or my parents, I lost my dad last year. You're losing some of the lessons that you want. And so the whole idea, I wanted to capture lessons I had learned from mentors and teachers and parents. And I wanted my kids to not skin their knees as many times as I did. That was the whole idea of the book. And it is a lot of work. So, congratulations taking that project on. And I hope you're enjoying the process, because it's really easy to be like, dude, this sucks. I don't know why I'm doing it, which is what I just did with my last book. I was like, why am I writing this? But there's so much that comes from it. Yeah.
And I tease that my book is titled Quit Proof, because that's the only reason why I wouldn't quit. Because like there's so many times I'm like, why did I name this book Quit Proof? It's like in my face laughing every single time I want to quit. And now I have to continue because that's the name of the silly book.
I love it. It's such an interesting concept too, because somebody asked me on another podcast, they're like, what has made you successful? Okay, whatever success is, that's obviously a very, it's objective. But my answer was, I don't know how to quit. It's the one thing I can do in this life is like, look, I can get my butt kicked again and again and again, but I'm going to keep coming. And so I love the name of that book, by the way. I'm excited to read it now, just based on the title alone. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, I'm super excited. It's actually coming out in January. And I'm like, perfect timing. Everybody wants to quit on their goals in January. So let's launch it right when everybody's like, oh wait, maybe I should become quit proof in this pursuit. But no, I would tell you, I'm pretty bad at quitting too. It's amazing to look at some of the things that I just kept going back for. I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like there's something genetically wrong.
It is. We're having this conversation, my wife and I, because if I pick up a book, I'm going to finish it, and it could be awful. Now, you could argue that's a waste of time, and there's some reason behind that. But there's something about it. If I commit to something, I'm just going to see it through, no matter what. And that can obviously serve us well in many regards. Sometimes having that accountability buddy to say, hey, you don't have to finish the 800-page book that you're literally despising every time you pick it up. But outside of that, I do love the name of the book. So,
oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I was saying in one of the parts of the book, I talk about maybe the goal isn't the goal, because I have that problem too of like picking something up and then be like, well, I said I was going to do this. And so I'm a person of my word and I'm going to take this to the end. And it happened. I had a friend that had a private plane that took us shopping one day. And I had never been on a private plane before. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my goodness, this is living. It took me like 2 seconds to go through TSA. We got to leave whenever we wanted on both ends. I mean, I was infatuated. So I came back from that experience and I signed up the same week to get my private pilot's license. I'm like, I'm going to become a pilot. I'm going to get a plane. This is amazing. And so I started taking these pilot lessons. And the thing that I didn't realize about flying a plane until I got into it was, one, you have an hour and a half of run-up type stuff, like all these checklists to make sure everything's good and going well. And then you finally get through those checklists, and then you finally get in the air. And then the entire time you're in the air, you're checking all your gauges and everything to make sure everybody's working the way they're supposed to. Then you're looking out all over the ground to see, like, if something went wrong this second, where would I land this plane so that we would continue to live? And then for like 2 seconds, you're like, oh, wow, this is really pretty. And then you're like scanning for problems, scanning for landing, and scanning for problems, scanning for landing. Well, I would come home from these classes, and I have 7 children. So all of a sudden, I would be scanning my environment at home for problems. That is not a good way to live when you have 7 humans in your household. And then I'm like, well, I signed up, so we're going to finish this. I take 2 of my kids on a test flight with my instructor, because I'm like, my whole idea was we're going to fly all over the country and we're going to go on these vacations and blah, 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 blah. And I have 2 kids in the back. Mom, where's the TV? Mom, do you have snacks? Mom, he's touching me. Mom, I need to go to the bathroom. I'm like, we don't have any of those options. This plane does not have those options. And all of a sudden I realized there's no way I'm going to be a pilot and keep the mayhem down in the back seat. I'm like, but I'm still going to stick with it. And then my coach is like, okay, now you have to take your final exam, but you need to make sure you call your insurance agency to let them know, because this is going to change all your insurance premiums. So I called my insurance agency, and I am in finance as well. I'm like, I'm sorry, I think you messed up. Like, what are you talking about? Like, how much is my premium going up? And then I decided, you know what? I realized that I don't want to be a pilot. I'm going to take this energy and invest it somewhere else. And I did not do my final exam because I was like, this, I quit. But I feel like the goal was not to get a pilot's license. It was to learn what it was involved and whether that really fit my lifestyle or not. And it did not fit my lifestyle.
No, it's actually a great example of you got caught up in the emotions, right? And it happens where you're like, I'm going to go do this. Okay, cool. Why? Because I like having this short period of time where I don't deal with security. Cool. Wait a minute. But if you're actually flying the plane, so that's where we ask further questions, right? But again, it's okay to get caught up in the emotions, and it's okay to realize, you know what, this isn't my purpose, which people are doing every single day. They're in jobs where they're like, but I went to school for this, so I have to see it. No, you don't. If it wasn't what you thought it was, go do something that makes you happy. Clearly, having 7 kids, trying to do that and all the maintenance of a plane, yeah, I think you made the right call, Jen. Like, you know what? Commercial's not so bad. Or the road trip across the country. We had a lot of good times doing as kids, so I think our kids will survive too.
Yeah, I'm going to let somebody else vacuum up those goldfish crackers in the back of that seat or that plane than myself and everything else. So yeah, no. All right. So in like learning a little bit more about you, you had a significant event happen in March of 2022.
I did. My dad, who was, one of my best friends, my hero, he actually committed suicide. And as a mindset coach, you think, well, what could I have done on top of all the other things that are going on, which is what the heck just happened? I don't understand. How could this? I had no idea this was ever going to be a possibility. And I guess what I really learned, Jen, through this, because there's always good that comes with bad. I mean, if you're willing to see it. And one of the major things that came from it was this perspective. I enjoy life to a degree I could not have before losing my dad. Every single day, I am looking to further my life. I'm looking to enjoy it that much more. Now, that concept I wrestle with because he obviously chose, or the decision he made in the moment was, I don't want to be here any longer. That's hard for me to understand because I love life. I think life is amazing. Even when we're going through, like, I just had my shoulders complete. What did I do? Shoulder repair.
Rotator cuff?
No, I had the whole thing done.
The whole socket? Like everything?
Correct. Yeah. Shoulder replacement. Sorry.
Why did you have it? Like what happened?
Just athlete beating it up for years. And the similar retreat, one prior, I was actually doing an exercise where I was pulling people over a wall again and again and again. But I guess the point is, like, I want to live to I want to live my best life every single day. I push for that. And that's why I got my shoulder done, because I literally couldn't play cornhole anymore, which is kind of crazy to think, like, I can't throw a bag. It's time to do something. But when it comes to my dad, the perspective I really had is, you know what? Every day I'm on this planet, I'm going to give it everything I have, and I'm going to enjoy every moment. And when we're going through the bad times, you know what? There's something good to be found. And so I have another level of being grateful for the time I did have with my dad. So yeah, it was a major life experience. I've learned a lot. It's helped me with coaching as well, just to maybe be a little more empathetic to my clients, to really understand where they're coming from, because this is the most traumatic event I've ever personally experienced. And you know what? I survived, and I'm doing okay.
Yeah. I can't even place it in my mind, right? Like I'm sure at the beginning you couldn't even place it either. And then you go through that whole up and down and waves, and it comes and it goes. And I do like how it helped you wake up to the magnificent of life and just have a whole nother level of commitment, which it seems like you were already a go-getter, lived to the extreme before, but just realizing the delicacy of life. I was in a life-threatening car crash. We have no clue how I survived. And a few weeks later, a girlfriend of mine died running on a trail that you and I could push a stroller down. It just wet out, slipped, hit her head the wrong way, never got to come home. And I realized we don't get to choose when we die, but we sure get to choose how we live. And every day we have a choice. And I'll tell you, those first, I mean, I wish I could stay in this zone forever. And maybe that's what like meditation will be someday for me. But that first 3 months, I remember watching my kids get in fights. And before, I'd always try to like step in and be like, come on, let's figure this out, blah, 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 blah. Right after that accident, I was, isn't this amazing? Isn't it amazing that I have two humans born from me that are entirely different opinions and they care so much about their other person that they want them to believe the same thing? And you just all of a sudden just allow everything to be as it is and find beauty in all of it.
Yeah, it is amazing the perspective and the word you're using, which I absolutely, it's one of my favorite words, which is choice, right? We get to choose every single day how we're going to show up. And one of the things that I talk about is, look, if for 44 years I said I people knew me as being shy. That's not the case, but let's just say it was. If I decided to wake up on the 45th year of my life and I'm going to be the most outgoing person, that is a decision, that's a choice that I can make. And that's beautiful because what it says to you is like, look, I don't care what your circumstance is, good, bad, and different. You can choose anything. That is the beauty of what we have available to us. Is it easy sometimes? No, of course not. There's challenges and there's responsibilities and all the stuff that we tell ourselves. But the truth is, your circumstance is a choice and you can choose for a different one. And I think that's what perspective, like you said, I want to hold on to it too. I don't ever want to let that go because to live in this heightened sense of, wow, this is amazing. Watching my kids fight, that's amazing. Watching them, like I lost my temper with my kids. It was Labor Day and I was like, come on, guys. Like, and then you know what? Truth is, they're I'm watching my kids in my house. That's not going to happen next year because my son is a senior. He's going to be in college. Right? Now, I that scares the living daylights out of me. But the truth is, if I stay present, I'm listening to my son fight with my other son. That's amazing. And that's just a choice. Listen to it, enjoy it, embrace it, and just try not to let that go.
Yeah, I know. So I have a junior in high school. And like when they just started school again, I'm like, oh my goodness, I have 2 more years of this is what this household looks like. And then it forever shifts.
It's hard to accept. I again, you have 7, so I'm guessing you're pretty maternal. I would be the maternal one at my house, and I was taking my son to the junior. It was the senior day of his junior year, and I started tearing up in the parking lot, and I'm going, "This is gonna be tough next year, man. Like I'm not ready for it." But you know, it's beautiful watching them grow up and become the adults. So it's just it's cycle of life, I suppose.
Yeah. But you, okay, so we were originally talking about your book, Let's Go Win, which was the one that you originally wrote for your kids, and then you were encouraged to share it with the rest of us. So thank you for doing that. I think even those of us that are listening can text the code and you'll give us the book for free, right?
100%. Yeah, I think it's, gosh, I don't even remember.
So we're gonna listen. We'll talk about this in the end, and we'll put it in the show notes. But those of you listening right now, if you text "winning" to 66866, you will get a free copy of the book. But you also wrote Champions Daily Playbook and Upgrade. Do you have a favorite that you wrote? Like what brought the other ones around?
You know, man, that's a good question. That's hard. It's like picking your favorite kid. um, I love Let's Go Win because it was the first. There's a certain, you know, I don't know, sentimentality to it. I really enjoyed that process. Champions Daily Playbook, I wanted to have access to anyone at any time. What I mean by that is having a one on one session with me. Maybe that's not affordable, but I want you to have the ability to do the coaching that I do. So that's what that book is really all about. And it's only 11 pages of text, and it's really just that playbook so you can improve. Upgrade was interesting because of the timing of writing. My dad had passed, and I'm in the midst of all that. But it's such a simple concept. People don't love to change, but they love upgrading. And if people can grasp this concept where it's like, look, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you, but would you consider upgrading to have just that next level of success? People kind of stomach that a little bit better than it's like, hey, I'm trying to change you. I'm not trying to change anything. Let's consider an upgrade. And so that's been a fun one to come out because people grab that concept pretty quickly.
Yeah, I know, I like that. When I have another birthday, I always say I'm leveling up. I'm like, "I'm not getting older, I'm leveling up. This is a level up, in case you didn't know."
It is so true because you hear people like, "Oh my gosh, every time you get older, you have wisdom, you have years of memories. Like there's a lot of amazing things, but it's out of your control. Like I'm going to keep getting older. Why spend any time worried about it? That it's such a funny idea.
No, I hear you. And okay, so one of the things that you're leading me into right now is leveling up and being a better version. There was a version of you that had a hard time balancing work and personal life, right? And you got over that. What did you do? Because I think a lot of us listening here, it is hard to learn that balance and that magic of making all of the things work and realizing you're sacrificing one for the other.
Well, similar to a lot of people, when you hit that almost rock bottom, that's what was happening to me and my wife. We were separated for a year. I was almost 300 pounds and
Wait. How much do you weigh right now?
I'm 250. I'm 6'5", so I'm a big guy to begin with.
That's a huge difference though, still.
Yeah, and I was unhealthy, but from the outside looking in, I'm making seven figures plus a year and the business is going good and I was absolutely miserable. And the whole idea was like I had lost focus on what meant the most. Why do we even do these businesses? Well, for most of us it's for our family, whether it's significant other or our kids. And yet I was pouring everything into the business and I was completely not engaged with my kids and my wife. So for me, I had to almost lose them, 50% of the time for a year and having that be a real possibility to understand like, wait a minute, why are you working so hard? Well, I'm actually working so hard to provide for them. Okay, well, let's plug into that relationship with as much vigor, with as much persistence as you are at work. And the truth is, what's crazy is the business actually started growing far faster once I got back on a even keel because my health started getting back to normal. I was being active, being with my kids and my wife, and we were just, back on track and in alignment. And it's so easy, I think, for people to get out of alignment, say, I have to just grind at the business. Well, the truth is, maybe you have to for a moment, but don't forget to check in on the what's most important in your life. And without health, let's just start there. If I kept on that path, I'm not going to have anything to enjoy the fruits of my labor anyway. So it's really important just to check in and have that work-life balance.
Hmm. And I think that's really good when you're helping other people too, right? Because you've lived it. Now you can talk from experience. And when we can talk from experience, it just comes from a different place of authenticity.
Yeah, the whole work armchair quarterback thing has never worked for me. Like my best example, I played basketball in college, and I had a college coach that every Monday and Wednesday he would make us run 2.5 miles. And I remember we used to kind of complain about it, like, "Oh my gosh, that's blah blah." Well, come to find out, coach was actually running 5 miles himself those days. So he wasn't asking us to do something he wasn't willing to do. In fact, he was doubling our production. And that taught me so much at a young age to be like, you know what? I'm never going to ask anyone to do something that I wouldn't be willing to do. And that's the exact example that I go back to is Coach Mass running those miles. Like, look, you're not an armchair quarterback. Don't ask somebody to do something you're not willing to do yourself. And as a leader, it's served me pretty well.
I can tell. I can tell. So, those of us that are listening, what is your ideal client? Where do you feel you have your sweet spot?
It's a good question. I've really landed with executives that have lost touch with whether it's their relationships at home, their health. They're doing fine business wise. Things are going great, but it's not ideal in terms of the culture of the office or maybe the culture of the family. That's where I've really found where I'm able to do the most impact and transformation is with folks that have kind of lost touch with that. And I love working with teams. It's just something I'm passionate about, and working with those executives and those teams to really not only improve, because my track record is we'll double your revenue in the first year working together. It's just that's what we're going to do. But more importantly, Let's get you on level, solid ground with your relationships, with your health, and really enjoying the holistic part of all of your life.
And that's uncomfortable for a lot of us for the first time that we're stepping into these different roles. So how are you supporting people when they're doing some of that? It,
Always, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no. It's like I know when like all of a sudden I'll have my foot on the gas, and it's not a season. It becomes like a way of life. And then when you start taking your foot off the gas, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. This isn't a speed I'm used to operating at.
I think when you come from a place of curiosity, so when I sit with a client and I'll say, all right, man, let's talk about what's going on. I just keep asking questions. And let's say they're like, I got to grind at work 90 hours a week, blah, blah, blah. And they start going down that path. I just continue to ask questions. Okay, cool. Why do you need to do that? Well, we're in this launch. We're doing this strategy. Okay. And so I just keep asking more questions. And what it comes often, people are like, well, if I don't do it, so okay, we have some control issues that we're doing. So now we're taking away opportunities from people that we could be maybe giving those to, or we're micromanaging, which isn't a great leadership role. And I'll just keep asking questions to where they'll come to the conclusions like, wait a minute, why did I wasn't always this way. I started with an idea and a vision, and I just lost sight of it. So it's served me well to always just come from a place of curiosity and just ask questions. No judgment. Just, hey, why are we where we're at today? Why aren't you truly fulfilled in your relationship? Is your health failing? And typically, you know what? I got focused on this launch or this new product or whatever it is, because it's always something in business. And it's like, okay, cool. Can we maybe change it? Can we, pattern interrupt so that we can have a great product launch and we can still have a great life at home? Is that possible? Well, yeah, I think so. Okay, cool. Let's explore that together.
Yeah, that whole and, and, and. I remember when I was pre-accident, I was the stay-at-home mom because that was my goal. And I put my life on hold. And then when the accident woke me up, like, hey, I could leave at any time. I don't think anybody's responsibility is put their life on hold for others. And so all of a sudden I started to step into me and I told my kids, I'm like, we're going to do an and thing. Like mom's going to do her and you. So it'll probably be a little bit of shifting. We're going to figure this out together, but I need to do more of me so that I can be a better mom. And it was wobbly at first for sure, but where we all are as a family is so much better off than how we continue down the existing path that we are on.
Yeah, it's important for us to all stop and take a look. My wife was the same, where she was like, I'm going to stay at home. That wasn't good for Lise. She needs that adult interaction. She's wildly talented and brilliant. Look, she does better with adult interaction. My sister, again, extremely smart. She could be running Fortune 500 companies, no problem, but she thrives in the environment of being home. And I guess it really comes down to what is filling your bucket. For my sister, being home with her kids fills her bucket in a way that it wasn't for my wife. And so it's just checking in, like, how are you doing? Is my bucket being filled, or am I literally exhausted at the end of the day, every single day? If you are, maybe there's some things that we can consider not doing that are draining you, because again, it's a choice. Going back to your word that you used before, there's certain things that you just don't have to do, even though we feel we're responsible to it.
Yeah. No, I love how this whole conversation has been about becoming aware, asking questions, questioning our choices to make sure they're lining up with who we want to be, and allowing other options to show up and try them out and test them out and see what happens and go from there.
Yeah, having a growth mindset, I think Carol Dweck nailed it. One of my favorite books, Mindset, when she talks about that, it's something I strive to have in every interaction. Now I don't, right? There's certain things where I'm just fixed, where I'm like, well, this way, what? It's like, wait a minute, let's not talk that way. That's not true. And so I go through my own process. But, really to be open to the fact that having a growth mindset with everything, meeting new people. There's 8 billion people in this world. I'm sure there's some more amazing people I'd love to have in my world, just like you and I had met prior. And it's like, I love your smile, you're dynamic, you have this great personality. It's like, I wouldn't have that if I didn't start a podcast years ago. And so it all started with, hey, I want to try something. And then I found out, you know what? I love the podcast. It's my favorite thing in the world. I wouldn't have known that if I didn't just give it a shot. So I think it's just always putting yourself out there. And sometimes it's that awesome book that you're like, yes, I love it. And sometimes it's that page, the one that you're like, oh, why did I start this book?
Yes. It's all discovering ourselves in this world and how we show up. So I love you. I love everything about you, your message, your motive, your ideas, what you're here to serve. How do we follow you and get to work with you?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I love the questions you asked today. So Let's Go Win podcast. You're going to be on it and you're going to be an amazing guest. I already can feel that. Let's Go Win 365 on any social media, and then letsgowin.com. So if you look up Let's Go Win, you'll get to see my face, good, bad, or indifferent. So there you go.
All right, let's go win, friends. Sign up today.